This is not going public, is it?
Welcome to La Casita Martinez, where we indulge in the art of deep conversation and vulnerability in pursuit of self-love, self-expression, and self-value. I am your host, Samantha Martinez. On today's episode, we're talking to my sister, Angelica, aka Jelly, aka Titi Alo. So we had a question come in from the comment section, which reads, what do you guys have most in common?
Well, what do we have that's different? Maybe we should list out our differences and then synthesize to find our similarities. We're pretty different, though.
Yeah, I think we're very different.
But over the years, we've probably become more similar. Or our similarities have complemented.
Aligned.
Yeah, definitely aligned a little bit more. I would say one of our major differences that people don't see right away is that you are way more confrontational.
I was just going to say, I'm a fighter.
You're a fighter and I'm a flighter.
But our personalities wouldn't.
No, reflect that.
Yeah.
Not at all. So we're both fake. That's what we have similar. No, I'm kidding.
So, tell us, who is Angelica?
Who is Angelica? That is a loaded question. And that's a question, in all honesty, I am exploring in weekly therapy with my girl Mirari, which is the healthiest and happiest relationship I've been in for 3 years. I'll tell you the person I thought I was, and then the person I realized I was. Growing up, grew up with 2 parents, hardworking parents, grew up with an older sister, younger brother, middle child on the south side of Chicago. And generally looking back, had a pretty happy, grounded, well-resourced upbringing and had an amazing community group of friends, went to church, had this extended family. I had opportunities. I was pretty good at school. I was a happy and healthy child. And then teenage years hit, and those were some of the hardest years I've experienced thus far. So looking back, I realize now that I was a happy child, but I definitely had some underlying mental health issues that I didn't fully understand and weren't fully supported for no particular reason other than many years ago. It wasn't something that was talked about or understood or accepted. So I am proud to say today that I am really a survivor, and that's not a word I use lightly. I would say, have a lot of strength that I didn't understand for a while, and kind of a will to move forward, and really just like this growth mindset that allowed me to push through my depression, push through anxiety, and not just push through, but really do the work in order to get ahead of it and accept that part of myself. And also accept the happy side of myself. So I think my duality in that space is what adds to my personality and who I am, is the ability to both be happy and understand and accept the mental health challenges that come my way that I'm still on the journey of. But overall, being accepting of that and understanding how that plays into my life and not trying to ignore it or not trying to just push past it.
And was there a specific time or situation that led you to therapy, or was that something that you sought after but were a little bit hesitant about it? Because, as you mentioned, the stigma around it, especially in our culture, about seeking therapy. Was it like a pivotal time in your life where like, okay, I need therapy? Or was that something in the back of your head that I was like, okay, it would be good for me. Now it's time.
I knew I always wanted and was intrigued by therapy ever since I was younger, mostly because the idea of having someone listen to you would help you. Like, who doesn't want that? Someone to like listen to you and like you talk like purely just like this, right? You talk, someone listens to you and you just kind of process out loud, especially growing up in a house where not that I didn't have parents who didn't hear me or listen to me, but were so preoccupied with surviving and supporting the family that they oftentimes didn't have, one, the time, but also the tools themselves to really create the space to listen and really hear us and kind of see through our needs and asks. So I knew I always wanted that. I just didn't understand the concept of therapy. And then at a younger age, our mom took me to therapy, and then the therapist just wanted to talk about her son all the time. So I was like, you need therapy. So I was disillusioned by that process and walked away, but was still intrigued by this idea of someone really being able to help me navigate my mind, and put up some like guardrails within kind of my mind and how it's mapped out. So, but I couldn't afford therapy because I was working and couldn't afford insurance really, and couldn't afford the service. So then finally I was able to get a job where it offered insurance, and I sought it out. And I was with my first therapist about a year and a half, and it was great, but it was a little bit more responsive to a specific situation in my life. And it just wasn't a perfect match necessarily. So I stepped away from that relationship, and once again, still knew I wanted it, just wanted to find the right match for my specific situation, my specific circumstances, was able to see my identity and understand my layered identity as a Latina, as a Chicagoan, as a feminist, as a social justice person. I wanted all of those values and qualities to be part of the conversation. So then I did a lot of research and did a lot of looking into the different processes and styles of therapy, and really try to find one that matched my approach in life and the way I learn and the way I process. And that really brought me to, just like I said, one of the greatest relationships to this day, my girl, my daddy.
And would you say, as being from like a first generation family, being Latina, how did your family react to that? Because it's so stigmatized, because it's taboo, how was their reaction, and how did that affect you during that process?
It wasn't something that was, and I think to this day, it's still not something that's fully discussed. I think just recently, I had to remind my parents that I am, in fact, still in therapy, because my therapist's dog just died, and it was so sad. So I wanted to talk to the parents about it, but they had no idea I'm still in therapy. I'm like, guys, I'm 3 years into therapy. So it's something that they're aware of as part of my orbit, but not engage in, which is fine. So I would say it's something that they understand and support in terms of professional help, but I think themselves may not really understand how that really fits into my kind of holistic life of therapy as really one tool to live a happy and healthy life. So I think it's understood. I don't think it's fully not accepted, but just fully engaged in terms of asking.
Like embraced.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say over the years, the parents have definitely accepted it more, but it's still limited engagement, which is fine. The relation, therapy is my own journey. It's not anyone else's, but I think it is a different, there is something different about being able to kind of openly talk about some of my takeaways in therapy into the people that I am closest to, right? And being able to talk about like, wow, I had this breakthrough moment, or like, wow, I never thought about this way, or like, wow, did you guys know that's what's wrong with me? And everyone does except for me, right? Like just those breakthrough moments along the way of the process are really important for me to share that with people close to me. So I've always kind of appreciated being open and honest about my mental health and my own journey.
And would you say this is a long-term journey, or is it something that you have found like refuge in because of a difficult time? Or is it something that you see as a process and has longevity as you continue to grow and evolve?
Yeah, that's something I talk about with one of my best friends who's a social worker, and she's of the mindset that therapist, and I don't mean to like make a general statement on behalf of her, but in conversation with her, she did encourage me, like, what does it look like to wean off that relationship, right? Like slowly depart from that. And I definitely hear her perspective on that, but for me, it's not a codependent relationship or a a codependent relationship, for me, it really is a practice of reflection and processing. And what my therapist's focus is psychotherapy, which is essentially I go into the space and have a stream of consciousness, and she provides really the more of like the lanes for where we're heading, right? So I'm just kind of spilling, and then she's able to pick up on themes and kind of redirect me if needed rather than really guiding the conversation. And for me, that's been extremely transformative. So I would say I do see this as a long term, whether it's with her, whether I take a break, whether I don't know what the future will look like, but it's not something I anticipate breaking from, because it is a reflective process, which is so helpful for me as someone who is pretty self-reflective. It is really helpful to share that space with someone else. I mean, maybe when I get a partner, I'll stop doing therapy, but until then, I'm still going to go to therapy.
Unless you find a partner that's a therapist.
Oh my
Win-win.
gosh. If only.
So how has therapy has tapped into, I guess, your self-love, self-acceptance, and self-value? Has it enhanced it? Has it really highlighted the things that you love about yourself or the things you want to change? Because I assume that's a big part of the process.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been a clean journey by any means. I think the first few years, that's really when I really got into a pretty deep depression, because I was processing and unpacking a lot of trauma. And those two things didn't make sense of like, how am I in therapy and getting more depressed? And I realized it was just the surfacing of so many suppressed memories, so many suppressed, so much gaslighting to myself on my end. And then being able to go through that kind of level of clarity, but also going through my feelings, being able to identify what my feelings are, which is not an easy thing to do. Growing up in an environment where feelings are not always talked about or understood or identified, right? So that journey, oddly enough, like led me to this space of self-acceptance, of that kind of like understanding of my vulnerabilities, my feelings, my hopes, my wants, my pain, and also my contributions to my life, and how I'm either getting in my own way or how I'm not stepping up. So I think one of the major takeaways, which is so weird, I didn't expect this. For a while, I lost my ambition. I used to be a super ambitious person, and for years, I just lost it. Like, I had no desire to work, no desire. And through therapy, like, I found my ambition again, my work ambition, and I am at that place again of just seeing a future. So that has been a huge thing of like, it's not just always like the self-love, or like self-love can feel like such a concept that isn't fully understood. But for me, like, one of my takeaways is like being able to believe in myself, to working towards something greater than me is a key tangible takeaway that I would have never got. For me, I was like, I never want to work again, and that's it. So to get that back was a huge victory and like a huge full circle moment.
So I'm thinking about like how capable you are and how strong you are, and what the value that you bring to a workplace.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah. Just today I was talking to my boss and like advocating for specific things, advocating for my team, which for me before I wouldn't have cared about, or I was like, whatever, I'd rather just hide in the background. So putting myself front and center and putting myself on the line and my values is all part of like this holistic process of like that is not disconnected from processing and therapy about, past traumas that maybe have contributed to me wanting to be more silent, or me being afraid of confrontation, or me being afraid of quote unquote authority, right? Like all of that comes into play to be able to like trust my voice, trust my leadership, and then also just come to people with love. Like it doesn't always have to be a fight. Like being able to also accept people and not have this kind of like projected hate towards people, which I think I carried for a while, has just allowed me to also just deepen relationships, or build on new relationships, or navigate relationships in general. So yeah, it's all connected. So I definitely don't see it as just one area of my life. Like it touches on everything.
So to wrap up the episode, what do you love most about yourself?
Ooh, what do I love most about myself? I love that I can make myself laugh, and not just make like growing up. I was always like the funny one because I had this pretty older sister, so I just like assumed the role. And I'm not even lying. Like I think internalized like I was the funny one. So I was always used to making people laugh, and I thought that was my role. And then over the year, like I said, it kind of in my process, I was like, I am funny. I am also pretty, but I'm also funny, and I can make myself laugh and just like laugh with myself, laugh through situations, laugh at circumstances. Like that's just such a I enjoy that so much of just being able to like laugh with myself.
This is a pure form of expression too.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, I would say, which might be an obvious answer of just like, oh, the funny girl, but it's just like, yeah, but I can make others laugh, but I also can make myself laugh, and that's huge.
Right.
I really just enjoy time with myself, and I enjoy my mind, even though sometimes it can be challenging. I do love it.
Amazing. Well, I hope this episode serves as a reminder or just a push for those who are in the process of looking to seek therapy, or who are in limbo and don't know, or might be the first in their families who are seeking professional help, and that there are people who are in your shoes and who find it wildly valuable. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.